I want to welcome everybody to another episode of the Advisory Board podcast. And I've got a good friend of mine with me today, Debbie Melkonian with Footprints Floors. And I'm going to do a quick intro. I'm going to pitch it to her and let her tell you a little bit more about herself. But let me tell you why I love working with Debbie. So the Footprints Floors is a great brand. And I'm not going to go off about the things I love about it, like they're just the culture of it, the idea, the executive team. But Debbie's been a fantastic partner with me because I've watched them develop a world-class, and I don't use that term lightly, a world-class customer service and almost inside sales team to support their franchises. What I mean by that is appointment setting and customer support, kind of that they've built this structure around that. And I've had a lot of folks ask me, Dave, like, what do you recommend, or how should we build this? And I thought we just need to interview Debbie and let her tell you guys how to do it. So let me tell you why you should care about what she has to say. She's been with the brand for over 10 years. She and they've got a team of 30 in-house staff that manage this process across 160 territories, 110 owners, something like that. Am I getting the numbers about right, Debbie?
80 owners. I think it is 170 territories.
Okay, so a little off on that, but they are busy and across the whole country. So, but before I bungle it, you also need to know that Debbie is a grandmother of 3.96 grandbabies. There's a possibility she may need to leave this podcast if her daughter goes in her water break. So we'll try to be concise so that you guys can get everything you can out of Debbie. But Debbie, before I go on, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit more about you, and tell us a little bit about Footprints Floors before we jump in.
Thank you. World class. Wow, I like that terminology. Footprints Floors, just quick sentence, is an flooring installation company. And so we have owners, as he mentioned, across the country, every single time zone in the US. And my team manages the customer service for all of those owners. And so that's really what we're about day in, day out, is the customer service part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and guys, we're going to dive into the topic here, which is how do you build a world-class customer service and appointment setting. I'm not going to use the term call center because I know you don't love that, but team that can support the franchise units to help them optimize their ROI on their marketing spend, help them reduce their customer acquisition costs, boost their revenue, and let them stay focused on what they're the best at, which is probably not the minutia of appointment setting and customer service calls. So Debbie, let's start for a little bit. Tell us just, how did you guys build this model? Like this idea of kind of a supported franchise rather than the way most people start is they say, here are your leads, good luck, take care of it, whether they use us or not, right? They're dumping leads on the franchise units and saying, I hope they do a good job. You guys don't do that though. How did you guys start this model?
So our founder started Footprints Floors 13 or 14 years ago in Denver. And he would be the first to say that he is great at sales in somebody's house. When he shows up, he's going to win the job. What he isn't good at is calling leads. He did not want to get leads from any source and call them himself and make the small talk necessary to get the appointment booked. So at the beginning, I think his wife was his first customer service rep, then her college roommate, and then me. And so 10 years ago, I think I was third on the list, and I handled all of his lead sources. So wherever he was getting them, Home Advisor at that time or other paid lead sources. And my job was to call as quick as possible, beat every other company we were competing with to that call, and get it on Brian's calendar. And if it was on his calendar, that was sort of the official passing of the baton. Well, if you fast forward now 13 years and we're across the country, we're still modeling that same exact thing. He's training franchisees to sell, to get in someone's home and sell and run crews. And we, as the customer service team, are handling all of the chasing of leads. And as anyone in a business knows, you can chase leads for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months. When somebody puts a lead inquiry in somewhere, it doesn't mean they answer and want to bid today. And so we have a system now with our customer service team that those leads are chased for a long time. Notes being made, an owner can see it. There's full transparency, but they're not making any call. They're not chasing any of them. And the first time they really know these names are when they look on their calendar and it's there. So that's our whole goal, is to chase leads, fill their calendar, And then we do the part we're great at because we like talking on the phone and talking to people and setting customers, and they like getting in the house and doing what they're good at, which is selling.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny because I agree Brian would be the first to admit that about himself. And yet I think he'd do fine, but it reflects a real truth that's universal across all brands, all franchises, almost all concepts, which is your owners, especially new franchise owners, they're usually solopreneurs or maybe like husband-wife team, or maybe there's, a full-time, part-time partner that's going to help grow the business, but they don't have full-time attention on their inbox and their lead flow. And this aspect of the business that is so time sensitive and experience sensitive. And so a lot of them aren't experienced handling incoming leads. They aren't experienced handling high volumes with high levels of cheer when the phone keeps ringing. So I think what you guys have done is kind of genius, and you've modeled it after your Denver location perfectly and made that kind of a universal system, and which I think has been incredibly helpful to your franchise system to grow like it has.
Yeah.
What
divided? Oh, go ahead.
No, please, Debbie, you're about to add on to that.
I was going to say we divided very early on into time zones. What we've committed to our franchise owners is that we'll answer their phones and chase their leads Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 in their local time zone. So our biggest, just because of how franchises have sold, our biggest teams are East Coast. We have 2 customer service teams on the East Coast, meaning a team might be 6 or 7 CSRs, customer service reps, working with 1 CSM, customer service manager. And those teams of 7 or 8 work together and get to know the owners in that region of the country that they cover. So we've got an East Coast, North and South team. We have Central Time Zone, and then Mountain and Pacific we can lump together right now, but we do have a CSR that lives in California. So she does 8 to 5 there, and then the bulk of our team is in Mountain and does 8 to 5 there. But we purposely divided by time zone so that we're not asking anyone to work 12 hours, and we're also not ignoring leads that come in at 8 a.m. on the East Coast and nobody's up in Denver for 2 more hours. So that team works 8 to 5 East Coast time so that it's run like a business, and we contact them, what's acceptable there for those customers.
Yeah, well, I love that you guys are doing that, and frankly, everybody's remote when you're running a team like that, rather than having a call center in Denver, which is what a lot of people want to do, so they can control and oversee and manage. And yet, you guys have decided to put more trust in your people and give them tools that help support them. So, do you mind? Let's talk about that, because I know a lot of people are concerned about losing that control and having remote teams. Tell us, how did you guys build that so it worked right for you? Because some people are afraid of it.
So we have always been remote in this business. When it's flooring, the job happens in a customer's house, right? In their family room. So we don't have an office space except for training. We've got a small office space in Denver for local people. But I've now hired customer service reps that live in Florida and LA and Las Vegas, and there are a bunch in Denver just because, friends advertise to friends. So we have people that like this job and try to do it. But if they live in Denver, they still might be working 6 to 3 Denver time. So they're covering East Coast. We do, there's always a risk with working remotely. After COVID, everybody wants to work remotely. I never am lacking for applicants. We provide basically a phone and a computer, and they work in their kitchen, living room, anywhere that has Wi-Fi that works for them. And through our CRM, we use Client Tether, and through there, we're able to see that calls are made right away. So we've got visibility. If we had a CSR that wasn't working, we can tell leads came in and no one called them, or leads came in and no one answered the text when a customer texted us back from an automated text. That hasn't been a problem for us almost ever. Occasionally we'll have somebody oversleep that works at 6 a.m. and their manager will go, "Hey, nothing's happening over there. Are you all right?" And then, we'll find out somebody slept in and they're quickly catching up. So that's super rare. We really have had excellent luck with people working from home. It almost seems like they like it so much better there are great employees working from home. I'm working from home. I'm sitting in my living room. So that's consistent with our whole team.
Yeah, I'm working from home also. And some would argue I'm at least a
I
decent.
can tell from the view. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like not quite hanging lakes, right? But it looks like something. All right. I assure you it's in Utah. All right. We have good mountains here too, and better, but that's topic for today. So yeah, I appreciate that you brought that up because one, the structure by having dedicated reps, and I want to come back to that as well, because you guys decided rather than round robin, rather than have the system kind of optimize the call routing, it's more important to you to have consistency for the franchise units that are assigned to, let's just say Lori Joe, right? So Lori Joe's got she's an East Coast team member, and she works with everybody in the North and South Carolinas. Let's say that's six locations. So in your mind, tell us a little bit about the philosophy behind having, the dedicated rep approach rather than like a distributed or a round robin or whoever's available next kind of approach.
That is, it solves several questions. The time zone is, of course, an issue. If we did a traditional call center where all 30 people have phones, and when the phones ring, so whoever beats them to that picks it up. That is a 12-hour, right? It's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Denver time if you were trying to cover every time zone. So that's a problem, to just know that you have the right coverage at the right time. But really for us, the bigger issue, this is also from Brian, our founder. He feels strongly, and I have come in the last 10 years to be on board 100%, that the customer likes to feel like they're calling a local company who knows them and knows their area. Now, that does not mean I have somebody sitting in Boston answering phones for a Boston owner, but I can now, if I've got a CSR that I've assigned to Boston, and for 6 months or a year until somehow he outgrows her as a CSR, something, she manages him, she can get to know, we provide maps for them. So when they're picking up a phone, they know our Boston owner's map of the zip codes he works. She has worked on, how to pronounce the cities in Boston. So I know she doesn't have a Boston accent, but she can still sound local, and she knows Zach, the owner there, and she can she can sound legitimate. She can comment on him and his son, and she knows their story and that they've worked together and all those things. So we give it the personal touch that way. So as an example, in our East Coast South group, let's say, if we have 7 people working there, and we divide up Florida and the Carolinas and Georgia, and a CSR is responsible for, let's say, 5 owners in the Atlanta area. When an Atlanta owner either starts growing too fast that now she can't handle all 5, we'll move one off, and that one guy gets a new CSR on that team. He probably knows her, he's had her over time, but that group of 6 CSRs start to get to know all of those owners in Florida, the Carolinas, Georgia, and they will end up, as the owners grow, they'll get reassigned, and they'll go, oh, I just got Reagan back, and I used to have Amy, and now I just got Joel, but I had him a year ago. And so they get to know that team. They sound local. The owners know them. And then when something comes up, and whatever, they have a baby, they get sick, they call someone they know, their CSR, and say, oh my goodness, I just got a flat tire. Can you help me with these next 2 appointments? They know who they're talking to. It's not a big round robin group where they're like, where are you? I don't know you. Do you know me? So on purpose, we want them to know who their CSRs are.
Yeah, well, I like that. And also it helps a lot. Correct me if I'm wrong, when a customer, let's say they set an appointment with you, and then the customer's like, oh shoot, I have soccer practice, I forgot, I need to reschedule. And if they call back and it's not Margaret this time, but it's Bobby Joe, and they don't know who Bobby Joe is, the experience isn't quite the same for the customer either.
Yes. And if they text back, they already talked to Margaret in your example, and they say, I forgot about soccer. And Margaret says, no problem. Oh my goodness, my son plays soccer too. No problem. How about tomorrow? We try to have that feel like they're making a connection. We laugh that it's a high compliment if our franchisee walks into the house and the customer says, oh, I think I talked to your wife, or I think I talked to your daughter, or whatever they think, they believe we're related because they had such a positive, happy experience. The person acted like they knew who was coming to the house. So the customer goes, oh, if they knew that they must be family, this is a family operated business. It's a nice compliment, and we benefit from that all the time. And they'll go, oh, I'll let her know it's actually not my wife, but she's awesome, and it just builds this great rapport. So
well, and it creates, I've heard Brian say this before. Brian's the founder, CEO, guys listening in, of Footprints Floors, but I've heard him say before, I want people to feel like this is a family run, family owned and operated business, because his is. Denver was always that way. And for a while, Kelly, his wife, is making those calls in the early days, right? And so and then when it wasn't her, it was Rachel, who was Kelly's college buddy. It started off very familiar, but that creates two things you've touched on. So I just want to reiterate them. Creates trust between the person going out to do the estimate and the person who's taking the call, the CSR and the franchise owner in this case. And it also creates, we didn't talk about this, but I want to talk about accountability. You hinted at it a minute ago about if somebody doesn't show up to the CSM, the manager can see in the platform what's going on. They can say, hey, you okay? Oops, I slept in. But let's talk about the accountability between the calls. I don't want to call it call center, but for everyone else's purposes, the CSR team functions in the way you would think of a call center, only just a lot better. So tell us, how does that help you guys with managing accountability between the franchise owners and the CSR team, because you've got dedicated reps?
Oh, I think in lots of ways. The owner always feels, our owners, like many franchisees, are out in their trucks or on the road all the time. So they now have someone they can call and say, did this customer call in? Did they ask that question? Is this address right? There's that kind of back and forth when one's on the road and one is somewhere where they've got access to the computer, the lead, the information. From a corporate perspective, because I'm on the corporate team, this is as eyes we have into our franchisees, right? 99% of franchisees are amazing and trustworthy and love the model and are following it. But if something was going on and we needed to have eyes on it, our CSR is who has the daily eyes, right? They can see that leads are turned on and that appointments are being visited. If we had an owner, I can think of one over the past several years who just decided to go rogue and added things we don't do at Footprints Floors. Well, the CSR knew, because the customer calls back and says they didn't show up and they said they don't do this or they do that. And all of a sudden we had a picture into what was happening in a franchise location, far away from where any of us live. Now, that has not been our primary focus, but it does provide accountability both ways. The franchisee can look up and make sure lead sources are on, we're doing our job, our customer service reps are answering their business lines, and we can hear the calls and so forth. So they have accountability up, but we have it down if we ever needed it, since we can't secret shop our franchisees. They're all over the country and most of us are in Denver. But this is a way we have eyes in if we ever had needed to.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that aspect of it. But certainly as you grow, those sort of optics kind of get harder and harder to gain. You don't really know what's going well, what's not, unless you've got a great system in place that can track it, right? But
and had we outsourced, let's pretend if this was a Dallas, Texas account that was going rogue, had we outsourced phone calls and the person doesn't know us, doesn't care, doesn't know anything about how Footprints Floors runs, we might not know for years, right? In this case, if we've got our trained person who knows us and how all the franchisees run things, they can say, alert, something's going on that doesn't sound right. You guys might want to reach out. And so again, it hasn't happened often, but as you get bigger, of course it can. Things happen. So it is our eyes into a franchisee as well.
Yeah, well, and let's invert that as well. One of the biggest complaints that I hear from folks that are trying to use like an outsourced call center, and there's some good ones out there. It's not the call center is bad, But the call center, let's say if they're helping, 15, 20 brands, 30 brands. So they've got, let's say, a team of 60, 70 people that they're trying to manage that are doing this. How does the call center know that their people are doing a great job? They have metrics to see, well, how fast did they answer calls maybe, and how long was the average call? And some of them have fancy tools that cost 10 grand a month that are measuring customer sentiment and stuff like that. Now that's a layer of sophistication you don't really need if you've got the right people doing the right job. But the challenge that I see in those models is that I'm a franchise owner, I'm paying X number of dollars per month for this service, and yet I have zero visibility. I can't see what's happening in the call center. All that I see is leads that are showing up on my calendar, and maybe data pushing into the, in your case, clientele, but whatever CRM you're using at the unit level, to be able to see notes or something like that. But I have no idea what the call was like. I have no idea if they were texting back and forth, and what the call center said. I've had this happen before several times where somebody said my call center agent was an idiot. And I found out because the customer told me. So I went back and listened to the call, because usually they'll give them access to like some archive. So I went back, spent 3 hours, found the call, listened to it, and heard the call center agent be a total idiot to my person. Now, this does not mean that call center agents are idiots, but like every now and then somebody shows up not in their best day and they really bungle a customer interaction. But that's kind of enabled because there's anonymity. Right? There's no accountability to anyone other than their call metrics. And there's no owner that they've got a relationship with saying, hey, Susan, how are your kids doing? Are they getting any better? And like, you build those relationships at Footprints Floors where the owners and the CSRs know each other and know each other well. So you just can't.
They can. I don't think very many owners take advantage of this. Well, a new owner does because they have more time. As soon as an owner gets very busy, and they've learned to trust the system of the customer service setup, they probably don't, but they can go back, and it doesn't take 3 hours. It's a quick find to go back and listen to every call with Marge Smith, their customer they just met today. They can hear every call in literally less than 5 minutes, unless the calls were longer than that. They can see every note made. And we know and are encouraging, we're training our owners in the same dashboard, in the same CRM that we're working. So we're making the calls, we're setting the appointment, they're doing the proposal in there and following their customers. So we actually oversee each other all the time. I think it's really positive accountability. And we're the first to say, we don't need you perfect on the phone. We need you friendly. It's absolutely fine to say, I have no idea if he does that. He's the right guy to ask. So